Hello there guys, Elita Legionarii here, and today I'll be bringing you some Napoleon Total War. Now I don't upload lots of Napoleon, but I do have plenty of Napoleon battles to actually upload, and every now and again I like to just bring some Napoleon to the field. I always usually focus on Rome or Medieval 2, but Napoleon is an awesome game, and it's always kind of a nice change of pace and just something else to sort of throw in there for some variation that's different from Rome and Medieval 2. And it is an extremely good Total War game in its own right, at least in my opinion, and most people would agree with me on that. It is a really good, great game, and you get some really nice videos from it. And I do have some really good battles to upload for it, so without further ado, let's upload. Now, the battle I'm going to bring you is an interesting battle in that it's more of like a focus on the aspects of teamwork, perhaps more than great playing itself. And you'll see what I mean when I upload this one here. 3v3. This was done on the Siberian Plateau map. And I was joined by my mate Doc Holiday, and we had just some random ally here. And I took command of Prussia in this battle, and the Siberian Plateau is an interesting map, and it's pretty flat, but there's lots of woodlands that sort of break up areas of the plateau you sort of deploy on or end up fighting on. So it's interesting in that you can use a lot of cover, but you can also got wide open spaces which are good for cavalry work. It is a good map. I like it as a map, and it's interesting. Now, as I said, as I was loading it up, this battle, it's not such a great battle in terms of seeing lots of really good tactics and sort of individual work, but it is certainly it's still a good battle that has those features in it, just perhaps not to the extent that you'd normally see. But what you see is just how, like, if one person on a team is not working in, you can see how dangerous it is to the whole team as a whole, and I want to kind of demonstrate this in the fight, or in this battle. Anyway, before I go on with any more, I'll outline my army. I'm playing as Prussia, like I said. My army is 5 units of Prussian Fusilier, which are perhaps I always tongue-tie my words somewhere in these videos. Perhaps one of the best, if not sort of the best, light infantry unit in the game. Perhaps only Portugal has really got better sort of light infantry type units to work with, and skirmishers to work with, but Prussia really is like the skirmishing king, really. When it's combined with its other sort of units, it is a very good faction, one of the definite best factions in Napoleon Total War. Anyway, I've got 5 of this Prussian Fusilier, then I've got 5 units of standard musketeers, which are pretty solid, pretty decent. Which plain general staff. My cavalry consists of 4 units of lancers. Lancers tend to be more useful in my opinion than most of the heavier cav, because usually I just prefer to use cav for breaking up formations and only getting charges and things, so lancers are more suited for that. I'm just going to go to slow motion here while everyone sort of sets up, and I explain the factions and units. So yeah, I've got lancers here, and of course lancers are quite cheap for Prussia as well. They're only about 570, which means they're very cost effective. And then my army over this section is 2 units of Landwehr as a meat shield, and 3 units of foot guards. This is generally I do something like this, a couple of militia level units as a meat shield for my guard units, and I use them as a flanking action or something like that. So I'm moving up here just to try and get into the sort of woodlands and the good terrain up here on the plateau fairly quickly. My ally here is Doc Holiday, who has taken command of Austria. His army consists of, he's got 1 unit of Windbusjäger, which is an interesting choice. I mean, Windjägers are extremely good skirmishers, immensely accurate. They don't have a smoke trail because of the kind of air rifle type thing they use. And they're a very, very good unit, but the problem is, in my opinion, they're overpriced, they're too expensive, and they don't have enough ammunition, and they only have 45 men, and they don't really have any range advantages over anyone. So yes, they're a very effective unit, but they just don't pay for themselves properly, but Doc wanted to give them a go anyway. He's also got 4 units of Grenzers. Grenzers are a good solid light infantry unit. Then he's got 3... Let's see, he's got 3 units of, 2 units of Hungarian Fusilier. He's got the Emperor's First Own Regiment. Then he's got the 47 Czech Regiment, Archduke Charles Legion, and another Hungarian Fusilier. Then he's gone pretty strong on the cav here. He's got Hungarian Hussars, the 1st Hussars, Cuirassiers, Carraccio Archduke Charles Ferdinand and Joseph Alvinci. So he's got is he the I think is he the third general for Austria, or is he the best general? I forget. He's a high tier general anyway. So Doc's put a lot of power into his cavalry, into his skirmish, but he has got the very effective sort of 3 specialist line infantry units to beef up Austria's rather weak line infantry contingent. And then out here on the left is our other ally here, and this guy was very difficult to work with as an ally. We tried communicating with him, but he just sort of didn't communicate with us at all, and it really costs us quite a bit in this fight, and I'll go on to explain that. He's got a couple of rifles and a couple of King's German Legion foot for his sort of light skirmisher units. Then he's just got the typical British foot. He's got 5 of those, and then he's got King German Legion foot again, and 1 Coldstream Guard. And oh no, he's also got an 88th Dakota North Ranger and a Coldstream Guard, so another light foot out there as well. So this is a pretty strong infantry sort of mix there, which you can be expected from Britain. Then he's got just a plain General Staff and the Royal Scots Grey, 15th Hussar, and a Dragoon Guard. So 3 very good cavalry indeed. So that's his army. Directly opposite him is another Briton. And this player's got the King German's Legion Light Dragoon, Light Foot, Dragoons, which are cav obviously, Light Foot, foot. I'm saying foot too much. Some Fencibles and the Duke of Wellington. So he's got the highest tier general for Britain there. That's an interesting choice. But a pretty typical sort of build there, a mixture of foot, light foot, and he possibly got some guards somewhere maybe. I haven't seen him though. He might have some units hidden. But a pretty typical British build. Then we have the French player here in the central area. He's got some Chasseurs Cheval, let's see, Guards Seamen. Then he's got some old guards, experimental howitzers, horse artillery. I think actually artillery was banned. Another person who breaks the rules. Polish Guard Lancer, Cuirassier, General Staff, and then a mixture of Polish Legion is his front line. More Chasseurs à Cheval out here, and the Brave Regiment over here as well. And then this player opposite me, he's just got a mixture of Voltigeur. He's got 2 old guard, a young guard, Swiss foot, Chasseurs Cheval over here, General Staff, more Chasseurs Cheval, and Swiss foot Polish Legion lineup. So the French armies are pretty similar as well in their build. So anyway, I apologise for the delay there with all the silent. Here we can see Doc's making a move with his Hungarian Hussars to get rid of these Voltigeur. Needs to be a bit careful. He should probably just push on through and get these guys, but this guy's swift, gets the Brave unit into squares, so Doc should just run away before he gets too badly shot up. He's going to get shot here by the Chasseurs Cheval and a unit of Polish Legion here, but Doc's going to retreat from that, and he manages to do a fair amount of damage. Well, actually no, he only got 16 million out of that Voltigeur, so probably not as much as he would have liked, in all honesty. But what we're trying to do here, Doc's going to play a kind of a central role and support both me and his ally, and we're going to try and get a breakthrough somewhere here. Because I have to be careful here, especially with this guard section of mine, because I'm going to be up against these old guards and young guards, which are actually better than my foot guards. So I need to be a bit careful here, and so I want to try and use my skirmishers here, because I've got skirmishers here, and my opponent, his skirmishers are much further back, or distracted by Doc and some of my cavalry up here. So I'm trying to use the cover and my extra skirmishers to compensate for the fact that I'm slightly outclassed in the duel here with the old guard. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to rush my Landwehr forward in the hopes that I can use them as a meat shield to tie these guys down into a melee for a time, and then I will try and shoot these guys while these guys are tied into a melee. So that's what I'm doing here. As you can see, I'm rushing my foot guards forward to attain this now. But my opponent's smart. You see this? He recognises what I'm trying to achieve, so he rushes his cav forward to get the immediate quick kill before these guys can actually do that. But I think he actually shot the back of his own men there, but that's a good move because it enables him to stop these guys. But he's momentarily caught into a melee. His own units can't hit. He charges through here, and I'm only just going to get into squares with these units, but it's a little bit slow, so I have to immediately counter with my own lancers to make sure I don't take too hefty casualties here to his Cheval. But now he's lined me up to get the shots. He's going to quickly pull back. I decide to sort of push on here, see if I can catch him while he's not in squares, but he's going to get to squares in time, so I need to get out of this, get my guys back into lines and start firing up. So it's a pretty aggressive bit of action from both of us on this side, but a good move there to counter my Landwehr move to try and force him into squares. But I managed to drive off most of his cavalry, but I think he managed to get one of my foot guards before I could get it into square, which was very unfortunate for me. But my line behind is getting its shots in, so I should be able to take these guys out, and he's going to get me again here, but this unit's going to get into my guards here before I got squares going, so he's doing a pretty aggressive job here, but I'm going to be able to drive it back, but not without difficulty. So yeah, so if we look up here, if we go up here, we can see that Doc has been using his cavalry to try and get at skirmisher units and pick away at some of these units, and he's sort of fighting on all ends of the field, up here against the British and up here against these guys. But if we sort of look, I just want to pause, we look at this guy here, he spent a lot of time just sitting here, and what we wanted him to do was sort of bring a force in here to deal with this, but sort of shift inwards so that they could make a little breakthrough up here with Doc's support. He just didn't sort of communicate with us, and it became a very frustrating thing for me and Doc to deal with later on. So yeah, I'm going to push through again and attempt to get at his guards. I do manage to get his young guards before he can get them into a square here, so that's going to be good. Should do a bit of damage, but I need to push out, and he's got his men in reserve behind the Swiss foot shooting, so he's backing. It's a good move there, and he's going to drive off my cavalry there. So this has been a very tight fight here, but because his guards are superior to mine, he probably will end up winning it just because of the superiority of old guard and young guard to foot guard. So I do have to be careful of this, but I do manage to get a fair few shots into him while he's still in squares, which is going to be useful, but he's bringing up more men to reinforce this section, and he's still got some cavalry over here. So I asked Doc to see if he could use some of his cavalry to get some pressure off here so I could start wrapping into this flank here with these guys here. So I'm going to start bringing this little group of 2 Hungarian Fusilier and a couple of musketeers and try and flank into the French force, because my guard flank is looking to be quite vulnerable. I'm a little too slow to get squares here, and that's going to pretty much rip that flank open, which is very dangerous. But through the centre my men have held quite well, but I need to rapidly move here and get like a flanking position, so I'm trying to achieve that now. And I got a bit of help from Doc with the cavalry, which is being very, very useful to me indeed. But Doc has been sort of driven off in some of his attacks here. Looks like his Greens has got beaten up pretty badly there, and this unit of Greens is a bit exposed. It's under artillery fire. Artillery was banned, and this guy had probably, I think he had 4 units of artillery. There's always somebody who breaks rules in Napoleon, or very rarely does it get followed, in my experience that is. Anyway, if we look at this unit, it comes in from behind me now, and it's going to take out my guard unit before I can do much about it. So he's won the guard fight on the wing, although he's certainly taken quite hefty casualties in doing so. But it is a very good move on his end to do that, because now what I need to do is I am collapsing back inwards. Unfortunately, with Doc's help, I'm trying to put as much pressure down on this side to compensate for the fact that I've not done as well on the right there. I lost that guard fight. That's what I'm trying to do anyway. If we look down the other end of the field, as you can see, the British are having a wee bit of a fight here. Now it's pretty hard to tell who's who, but if you guys are struggling, what you need to do is look for, if you look at this unit here, see here it's kind of red around it, whereas these ones are blue. The blue ones are the ally and the red are the enemy. So most of the British army in this sector is over here, so he should really just push in and get quite aggressive here and actually reinforce Doc, because if we look here, Doc's managing to actually occupy this French player's infantry in the centre and this British player here, so this is a golden opportunity for this guy to really put the pressure on down here and push in through here and up on the flank so he can get around, and we were trying to get him to do that in this fight and he wouldn't listen to us. I had to take my hat off to Doc though. He's all over the place. He's playing a really good central role here, but he's just not getting correct support on his end, so he won't be able to hold the French or the British out, and plus he's under artillery bombardment, which is making this hard for Doc. So I'm trying to deal with my opponent, but he's definitely playing well, and this is not proving easy for me to deal with this. But I'm still in the game here, still doing pretty well against him, holding my own. He has probably got better cover than me at the moment, but I will retreat back in a moment to get that cover because I want to maintain that cover. It's still fairly even between us. He did win the guard fight, but his losses were pretty substantial in doing so, and he lost quite a few skirmishes on the other wing with a bit of help from Doc there for me dealing with that. So we have managed to do pretty well, although I am outflanked here by his guys, so I need to collapse my flank inwards here as well. And I'm not sure which French player this is. It might be the central one here that's used the Brave unit to drive off one of Doc's Grenzer units. But I'm still opening up onto him, but I need to kind of retreat back, get into the cover of these woods, and try and draw him out into the open because I need to get those little superior terrain features. I still have some cav over here, and I'm trying to use that just to disrupt the Brave unit because I need to get these guys off my flank because I'm occupied with this front, and I don't want to be sort of outflanked there. But my opponent's smart and he keeps going to squares, making it difficult indeed. If we look up the other end, again, this British guy is just not really doing much. He's taking too much time. You know, there really is quite a golden opportunity. Look, he does cav in the back here. Could slip these guys into the back, shift these guys around. Doc could push up the front. He could push the flank here. And I think they could drive this British player off with some good cavalry combined assaults there. But he just really wasn't sort of working with it. And me and Doc were kind of communicating with him to say, you know, give it a go, because it's going to take the pressure off, because I'm probably going to lose my flank here, but I'm going to make it difficult, and I'm not going to go down easily per se. So this foot guard unit is out of ammunition, so I'm going to try and run it in some of these sort of weakened units in the centre here. Hopefully I won't take too many losses on the charge. I don't, but my opponent is smart. He's going to try and withdraw, but I'm going to be able to tie it down into melee, so I should be able to destroy that unit, and if he tries to reinforce it, it'll take more pressure off my guys here. But he's using his general to be a nuisance, and he's sort of attacking my musketeers here, and he's got me a bit outflanked here, but I'm going to try and shoot that flanking unit. Over here, as you can see, I've sort of collapsed inwards on this wing, but I am pretty heftily outnumbered out there, so I'm going to keep using this foot guard that's out of ammunition and just try and sort of busy these units so I can then focus my attention on dealing with this sort of outflanking force that's got around me a little bit here. Through the centre, Doc is in a bit of a melee duel by the looks of things with some of these cav with some of his elite line. I think because he's in the woods, he might be getting it a wee bit safer against cav, as cav tends to be less effective in the woods in Total War games. I think it still applies to Napoleon. So that's why Doc's guys are holding out. I don't know if Doc actually got squares there. If he did get squares, then he will win that fight, but it doesn't look like he got them. And now Doc's had to peel units off to stop this sort of French force. So yeah, there's still plenty of melee going on here for Doc, but he's brought his Czech regiment up here, as I said before, and is winning the fight so far, but there's cavalry coming in now, which should probably turn that into the French player's favour there. And of course there's more cavalry coming in as Polish Guard Lancers, so Doc needs to reinforce this pretty quickly, so he's bringing his general up here to boost the morale. But this is a good testament to these Austrian sort of elite line infantry units. They are very, very strong as line infantry. They are very, very good, and I think it's very critical for an Austrian army to actually make use of them in their battles, because Austria really doesn't have the kind of line infantry it needs. So if you do have the DLC that gives you these, you should make use of these units. And if you're an Austria fan, you probably want to get that DLC because they are very, very good indeed. Anyway, as you can see, the French player has pushed in on Doc here, and he's getting into a bit of a shootout with these Polish Legion. Now, I think they should probably outclass Doc's Hungarian Fusilier. They should do, but Doc's got better cover with his though, so that gives him a bit of staying power. Over here, we see that these French Cav have just run down some of these. Oh no, sorry, it's Cuirassier versus these Chasseurs Cheval, so it should be a pretty close fight, but the Cuirassier are a little heftier, so they should probably take that, but French Cav is really hard to kill. As we can see here, only now is this sort of British army moving in here, and it's kind of leaving Doc a little bit isolated here on his own, you know, so he's not sort of supported fast enough, like I sort of said. I'm not sure which one of the generals that was. Over my side of the fight, I have managed to sort of force my opponent back, and what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and shift my forces so I can go and help Doc, and hopefully recover sort of a central position here so that we can then hold off the remaining French forces over here and then make a combined move with this fellow to take out the other British player over here. But as I said, nothing against this guy or anything, but he was just difficult to work with because he didn't seem to sort of communicate or listen to any of the ideas that me and Doc were sort of suggesting as the battle progressed. But as you can see here, Doc has kind of lost his melee fight here, which is understandable. The French are better at that sort of thing, and these are old guard too. So he's really going to struggle to beat those kind of guard units. So Doc's in some serious trouble. Over here I see a unit of Polish Legion that is sort of exposed, so I'm going to use my general here, see if I can get a few charges in, do a bit of damage. But yes, my opponent is well and truly withdrawn, so I'm using this opportunity to sort of to reposition myself this way and basically buy some time. But it was at this stage, we really were talking to this guy who was saying, can you move in please, because we're getting, having a hard time with our opponents, and you're not really doing anything. He's having a little bit of a duel with some of these units here, but there are British units over here that are moving in to help the French player take on Doc, and we really need this guy to move in now, but he didn't seem to take any sort of time to listen to anything we were saying, and it made this difficult. So what me and Doc resigned ourselves to is we would probably definitely be destroyed, but what we'll try and do is damage our opponent enough that this guy's army, which is still relatively intact, should be able to finish them off. That's what we're going to go for here, because we realise that we're not going to win, that we're too depleted at this stage. I mean, we fought a little bit more than numbers than we had to use. So over here I've got one of my musketeers, and I've been taking a few shots at these guys here. Doc has withdrawn some of his units, but he's no longer in the woods, so he has to be a bit careful. But he should be able to open up on some of these chasseurs here, Chasseur and Cheval Cav, and he's going to get a few shots in. This is the Emperor's First Own, so this is a good unit to work with. So we're just going to try and do whatever damage we can, play some stalling and delay work. But we really wanted this guy to just sort of do something more, and he was very, very reluctant to sort of move in and actually take advantage of this. Like this position, these foot here, for instance, are in extremely deep formations. If he just moved in and started putting some shots down, he would do a lot of damage to them because of their deep formation. But he was just only now just sort of moving. He's left very late in the piece to do this, indeed. I believe he has had some cav here in the back, trying to get rid of some of the artillery, but it's gotten pretty isolated, and again it would have been put to better use if it had helped Doc in the middle there. But I'm going to line up my guys here and try and get some shots off, try and take these guys down, combine with Doc and do as much damage as I can. But I have to be quick about it because I'm trying to delay this French force of this person with an inferior number of men. But I'm hoping I can just delay them, use the cover here of the woodlands, and just try and hold back this force while me and Doc disintegrate enough of this sort of French force in the middle here that hopefully our British ally will have enough men to finish up. Hopefully, because he's obviously fighting individually and not really working as a team. So me and Doc really need to make sure that he does not have to fight too much. So we want to try and do enough damage to help him, basically. So I've been shooting up these sort of Polish Legion and been having a pretty good success as well. And then I'm going to send my cavalry in here to help Doc deal with this old guard. And for now we are actually defeating it. It's almost destroyed, so that's going to be extremely useful for us. So a bit risky using our generals here, but it is a depleted old guard, so we should be able to take it out. We have to be careful of his own general though, of course. But I'm starting to get heavily outflanked here with my line infantry, so I'm just trying to reposition my guys to face it. And much the same thing's going on over here, and my guys are I've definitely been beaten by this guy over here. He's played very well. I think he's definitely the best player on their team, but I'm trying to delay him and either thin his forces out, destroy the central guy with Doc, and hopefully give my British ally, or our British ally over here, enough men to win in the end here. But he's not doing very well so far. he's on lower terrain here, even though he's got the cover of the woodlands. He's on lower terrain, and he's got less men focused in the area. His men are sort of up here, and there's not a whole lot of fighting really going on up here. It's kind of hard to tell who's who of Britain, but of course, as I said earlier, the blue and the red circles around the flags are the way to tell. So he's going to charge his King German Legion foot into these foot here, but he's going to be outnumbered. And this unit can easily sort of pull into the battle as well, so he needs to be careful here. And I was sending my general over here. I wanted to see if I could help him, maybe get a rear charge into some of his men. I'll do what I can. Over here, we managed to repel one of the cuirassiers. Dock, I think, has been completely destroyed by this point, and I've got a couple of units that are still alive on the battlefield, and I'm just trying to hold out wherever I can, and delay wherever I can for as long as I can, and hopefully it'll be enough for this guy to have enough left to win. At the moment, he seems to have done alright on this side, and these guys have retreated, so this army's pulling back here. He should take advantage of this now before the French can come over here and system, because the French can come over here and system once I'm destroyed. He won't have enough men to take on both, I don't think. So I was telling, me and Doc were telling him, you know, go destroy this British player now. You've got the advantage over him. Go, take him out. Me and Doc have got a couple of forces in there, or I've got a couple of men in the area. I will try and help you. I'll run interference for you. I'll try and delay this French army over here. Do it now, before he can reinforce his British ally here, and you'll have to fight two armies. That's what I was telling him here, and he was he was very reluctant to sort of do it. You know, you sort of just see how he's just manoeuvring around quite quietly and quite still. It was a little frustrating, to be honest. I mean, I've got nothing against the guy. I'm not trying to be mean. It was just, he didn't work in very well as a team, and occasionally, that doesn't happen that often, but occasionally when it does, it is very annoying, because it's difficult to make those sort of strategies work. Anyway, I'll get charged by the general here, so I have to get myself into squares, and I'm really just doing everything I can to delay, and I'm managing to delay 5 or 6 French units with 2 units or so, and I'm getting some shots in over here as well. I'm just going to do whatever I can to delay, but this British guy, our British ally here, see what I mean? He's just sitting here. He's repositioning his men steadily and quietly. He needs to move in, and these guys have managed to retreat all the way back into the woods to get a great cover position, and he's now closer to his French ally. He should not have let this happen. That's the last thing he needs to happen. I mean, I can delay him for a certain amount of time, but it won't be very long. And I can try and do a few flank shots over here, which I'm doing now. But he would be foolish to allow these two to link up, because then he'd be fighting 2 armies. He needs to take advantage and take out one while he's still got the ability to do so. Then he can finally fight the other one on his own, which he should be able to take, given that me and Doc have done sufficient damage to both the other armies. And because he wasn't really communicating or working with us very much in this fight, it was very difficult to try and get him to do this. And again, I'm not trying to demean this guy or anything. I'm just talking about the battle as a whole, how it was progressing. I've got nothing against this guy, nothing like that. I like to talk about a battle as I see it. Anyway, I go to a bit of a melee charge in here with my guys here, my musketeers. See if I can tie him down. See if I can perhaps take 1 unit out of the equation for him to shoot at temporarily. But as you can see, my stalling action on the French player over here has been destroyed, and now I'm going to get outflanked, and I'm going to lose this unit. So I am also now out of the battle. So it was looking pretty bleak at this point. But it's at this stage that this guy's on his own, but me and Doc have done pretty sufficient damage we've destroyed the central French player, and we've severely damaged the other French player, and we managed to get a few pop shots into the middle French player, and this guy their British player. Our British player had done significant damage to him in their initial fight, but I think he should have pushed his attack sooner before France was able to come along and help him. So hopefully that's not going to be too detrimental, but he has got a pretty large number of men left because he's been so sort of standoffish and engaging in the battle thus far. However, his British opponent is in much better terrain cover, and he's now got a French ally supporting his flank here, so the situation, well, it's still very much winnable for us, because this guy's still got a pretty high number of troops. It isn't really ideal in that he could have dealt with this British player quicker, which means he wouldn't have had to fight so much now, because me and Doc would have delayed the other two French players. But suffice to say, he's got the advantage of having the rifles here with the long range, and that is coming in quite useful against the other British player here, because he's getting in some good shots while he's trying to get to cover. But you can see a bit of an interesting move being made here. You see how the British player is trying to shift, or the enemy British player is shifting onto the wing here, as is the French player. So he needs to be very, very careful he doesn't get himself caught on two wings, and he's only got the majority of his army fighting a very small force in the middle. He needs to make sure he allocates his forces correctly to deal with the numbers on his flanks. But while this guy's positioning, he has been getting some pretty good shots in, which is great. It's going to allow him to hold out. Over here, he's moving his forces in, and he has got sufficient numbers left to be able to handle this pretty well. So he's doing pretty well so far. And these guys are doing a lot of positioning, and then they're positioning too close to the enemy, to their enemy lines, and they are getting quite badly shot. So far, things are advantageous for our ally, and he is getting some really good shots in, which is good. And I think, though, much of the success, and I'm not trying to be arrogant or anything on me and Doc's part, is we managed to sufficiently damage the other two players for him, so that when he went to fight these guys, he did have more numbers to work with, and troops that were in greater condition, even though it cost us both our armies to do so. And I mean, this guy, he's done well to get his positions like this, but he has left a lot of this very late, and it's cost me and Doc both their armies, because he didn't really work with us at all in the battle. But he should be able to mop up the remainder of this French army, because if you notice, this sort of French player attacked while this British player kind of just ran back and reinforced. So what kind of happened is he was able to destroy much of this French army without the other army putting pressure on, so he was able to fight them sort of individually, which was very good for him, because now it's allowed him to turn things into his favour. Had they attacked simultaneously together, I think he would have been in more trouble. But he needs to reposition these troops here in the middle, because the vast majority of his enemy is on the flank of his army here, and he's got very little actually facing it. So he doesn't really need these troops right here in the middle to be in the middle anymore, because there's not really a lot facing him. There might be 1 or 2 units, but the majority is on his left wing, and it's to his left wing that he needs to reshift his army. He needs to do it relatively quickly, because otherwise he will end up getting shot at while he's trying to position himself. So he needs to do that pretty quickly, because as you can see, these units are sort of shooting en masse into one unit on his flank here, so he needs to be careful. He probably should shift 2 or 3 units onto this flank here. He should still have enough to hold the centre here, and then he can make his flanking move here, as you can see he's doing. So yeah, he's going to open up anyway, though, but he does need to be very careful, because his flank will collapse if he doesn't sort of sort himself soon. And that's very important. So as you can see, he's sort of pulled back here, and he needs to be very careful, because if this flank was to mass rout, the pressure could be put on from these two, and then it would be a sort of an outflanking move there. So it's still definitely up in the air as far as this battle goes, and he needs to be careful here, because he's sort of fighting 1, 2, 3, 4 units with just a couple. He needs to try and concentrate his numbers. That's his strength. He doesn't want to split himself up like this. That won't work well for him. Here he's going to get charged by this Polish Legion. 88th Connaught Rangers versus the Polish Legion. Should be a pretty even fight. That being said, however, the Polish Legion did get a much better charge. He's gone into squares here. I'm not really too sure what that was in aid of. The general's cabo. That's about the only reason why you'd need to do that. But it appears, yeah, I thought this was the case. The 88th Connaught Rangers had more numbers, and I think they're a bit better in the melee than the Polish Legion. British troops tend to be a little bit better at melee than French, at least in terms of line infantry, and it's a specialist unit, so he manages to win that particular scrap. But he's going to be able to reposition his forces here. But he needs to, these sort of units here where he's fighting outnumbered, he needs to either pull back or need to quickly reinforce it so that he's fighting with even numbers. Make use of those numbers. Don't want to be fighting on uneven terms, because that would be less than favourable for him. But he manages to get rid of the French general, I believe, or I think it was the French general. That is exceptionally useful. It should do some severe morale damage to his opponents. So if he just needs to pull back now. Before, this unit here, for instance, is just going to get wrecked. So just pull back and make sure he's not losing out units ceaselessly or needlessly, which would be useless if he did so. Bad for the whole team as a result, because it's down to him if he wants to win for the team. But yeah, he needs to pull back here, because he's facing, like this, these units are facing extra numbers, so he needs to face and line up where he's fighting number to number, even to even sort of scenario. Otherwise he's gonna have a hard time. He's still got plenty of men here, but a lot of them are just sort of sitting back. He needs to get them all organised and lined up so he's fighting evenly, because he's got more numbers to work with now. But just fighting one versus 4 like this is just not a good idea. So he needs to quickly get them organised so that they're all fighting together, because that means he will win, because you can see now the bar is quite substantially in his favour, because he's got a lot more men left. And that's partly because the French player attacked over here, but the other British player retreated, and they didn't attack together. Had they attacked together, it would have evened the numbers out more. They didn't do that, which is fortunate for our ally here. So he's going to sort of push in here, as you can see. Over here, as you can see, he is sort of getting quite badly beaten up, and he's getting some shots in on these King German Legion foot, which is not so good for our ally. But over here, these guys are pretty heavily depleted. I think he's just going to go for a bayonet charge, which should enable him to win this, because he's got better numbers here. He gets a few shots off into this unit. He'll catch this light foot out, and he'll take it out of the equation. And as you can see, he's about to go into a melee here, but units like this and stuff, he needs to get them moving, get them into the fight. Make use of all your assets on the battlefield, not just one or two. Don't fight piecemeal, don't fight in waves. Concentrate your numbers, work with your power. That's what you got to do. And he hasn't always done that, but he's done enough, and he should be able to take this fight. So I take my hat off to him for that. But I think, again, if this sounds overly critical of him, it's not like a dig at him individually or anything like that. I'm just talking about what's happening on the battlefield as it happens. And he didn't really work in with me and Doc at any point in this fight. And the fact of the matter is, a lot of the damage forces he were facing was because me and Doc had done sufficient damage, even though it cost us all of our forces to do it. And I think had he brought his forces in a lot sooner to help, especially to help Doc, this battle might have been won a lot easier than it's going to be. Anyway, he's going to catch the remainder of these last British forces out, and he will deal with those over here. As you can see, he's about to finish these guys off. So he still ended the battle with a fairly large number of troops, in all honesty. So he's done pretty well there, but his opponents sort of attacked him individually and rather than together, and I think if they attacked him together, they would have encountered a lot more success against him. So we had some things going for our favour in this battle, and that our opponents didn't necessarily attack this guy quite as combined as they probably should have. But suffice to say, he's managed to pull off a victory for the team, so I do take my hat off for him there. So I'm just going to go to triple speed here. There is another unit way up here, and a couple of units up here. Don't think there's anything else on the battlefield. But a very close battle indeed. But like I said, okay, there it ends. Like I said, I do believe our ally, although we've won it, it's much closer than I think it needed to be. I do believe we could have actually won this battle much more decisively, because as you can see, me and Doc were actually doing very well in our battles. But the problem is we were sort of fighting sort of three opponents at times there, especially Doc there. He was fighting sort of almost all three players sort of in certain parts of the battle in the middle there. And our ally here, he just didn't support us really. And although he still managed to pull off the victory in the end, he didn't sort of work in as well with me and Doc, and I think we could have won it a lot more decisively. And I just wanted to talk about the whole point of working in with your allies, because if you don't, you run the risk of ending up fighting too much on your own at the later stages of the battle. But I think me and Doc had done sufficient damage to all the other players that he had enough men to win that in the end. My French opponent, I do believe, outclassed me. At least he did on that flank there with the guards. He was a very good opponent, but I do think me and Doc we did have the other French player beaten pretty much, and had we had the support of our British ally, it would have been a much quicker, more decisive victory. But nonetheless, it was a good win. And if we look at my guys here, my foot guards, two of my foot guards, one of my musketeers, high kills. You know, my guys have done pretty well. They more or less cancelled out the French player I was fighting. They left him with he still had some good numbers left, and he did win this battle with me, but it wasn't like he crushed me. He lost quite a few men in doing so. And I did have forces fighting other places on the battlefield as well. So me and Doc sort of we kind of had to fight in several places at once, and we didn't have a lot of support from our ally, which made it more difficult than it needed to be. But he still managed to keep his wits about him, and he managed to pull off the victory in the end. So even though his teamwork wasn't the best, he still played it well at the end and was able to take the win, so good on him there. So thanks for watching, guys. Now, I do believe Doc Holliday actually uploaded this battle from his perspective about a month or so ago, a little bit more than that perhaps. Doc's channel is very small and he doesn't upload very frequently, but I can put a link in the description if you'd like to see it from his perspective. So once again, thanks for playing. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it told you a little bit about the sort of ideals of teamwork, and hopefully you maybe got some opinions about what happened. That'd be great. You can just leave a comment. That'd be cool. So thanks again, guys. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you soon next time.